In the precise and irrevocable moment that Hillary Clinton, standing under the bright studio lights, declared to President Trump on live television, "History will remember you as a criminal who should be in prison," she committed the kind of catastrophic strategic error that corrupt politicians so frequently make when they underestimate their opposition. In that singular instance of hubris, she had completely forgotten that she was attacking a man who had spent the preceding 8 years meticulously collecting evidence regarding her deleted emails, the alleged pay-to-play schemes involving the Clinton Foundation, and her purported role in selling 20% of America's uranium capacity to Russia. Fox News had organized what they were billing as the definitive debate of 2024, a rematch that America had fervently demanded, an event that had originated merely as speculation on social media, asking what if Trump and Hillary debated again, but this time with the benefit of hindsight. This confrontation was set against the backdrop of all the evidence that had emerged since 2016, including the WikiLeaks emails, the various congressional investigations, the FBI reports, the revelations concerning the Clinton Foundation, the Uranium One documents, and everything else that Hillary had managed to avoid discussing during the 2016 campaign by dismissing it as fake news or Russian disinformation. Fox had extended the offer, and Trump had accepted immediately, as he had been waiting for this specific moment for years. Conversely, Hillary's team had initially declined the invitation, but after Trump's legal troubles began piling up in 2023 and 2024, she had changed her mind, believing that the indictments against him had vindicated her, and that history had finally proven her right. She believed she could finally have her revenge on the man who had defeated her in 2016 and had haunted her legacy ever since, envisioning a scenario where she would go on live television, call him a criminal to his face, and watch him squirm under the pressure. She had absolutely no idea what Trump had prepared for her. For 3 weeks, Trump had worked obsessively with his legal team, opposition researchers, and former federal prosecutors to compile what he termed the Clinton Crime File, a comprehensive dossier of every Hillary Clinton scandal, supported by documentation that would stand up to the most rigorous scrutiny. This was not going to be an exchange of insults or personal attacks. Rather, this was designed to be a presentation of facts, evidence, and receipts. The arsenal included emails obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests, FBI reports that had been declassified or leaked, transcripts of congressional testimony from multiple investigations, and State Department cables demonstrating the correlation between Clinton Foundation donations and favorable government actions. It also included Uranium One contracts and financial records, findings from 8 separate inquiries into the Benghazi tragedy, and WikiLeaks documents that had been authenticated by multiple sources, all organized into color-coded binders with tabs, cross-referenced, verified for accuracy multiple times, and prepared for display on the massive screens Fox would have positioned behind the podiums. Trump had even hired a documentary filmmaker to create visual presentations of the most damning evidence, such as timelines showing donations followed by favorable government actions, side-by-side comparisons of what Hillary told her family versus what she told the public about Benghazi, and financial charts detailing Clinton Foundation revenue sources and expenditures. Each piece of evidence was designed to be understood immediately by the viewers, to be undeniable even to skeptics, and to be devastating when presented in sequence. Most importantly, Trump had prepared responses to every defense Hillary might offer. If she said, "A matter was investigated," he had the investigation finding, showing what they had discovered. If she said it was debunked, he had the evidence showing it wasn't. And if she tried to deflect with, "What about your scandals?" he had direct responses comparing classified documents in a secure facility to a basement server. He had war-gamed every possible exchange with his team, practiced his timing, and prepared himself to prosecute rather than debate. Indeed, Trump was not coming to debate. He was coming to prosecute on live television in front of 50 million viewers. With receipts, Hillary thought she had buried forever. What happened in the next 2 hours would force Hillary Clinton to defend scandals she had spent 8 years avoiding, admit to actions she had denied for nearly a decade, and face questions about criminality that made Trump's legal troubles look like parking tickets. If you have ever wanted to see what happens when Trump finally gets to confront Hillary with all the evidence on live TV, this narrative describes exactly that, especially the moment he pulls out the Clinton Foundation donor list at minute 47, causing her face to go white. The Fox News studio in New York was packed beyond capacity with 500 people in the audience, the network's largest debate setup ever, with the crowd roughly split between Trump supporters in MAGA hats and American flag gear on one side, and Clinton supporters in Stronger Together shirts and I'm with her buttons on the other, alongside a smaller section of genuinely undecided voters in the middle who were curious to see this unprecedented rematch. The stage was set for maximum drama, with 2 podiums angled toward each other, massive HD screens positioned behind each candidate to display evidence, and Brett Baier at the moderator's desk between them, looking like a man who knew he was about to witness either the greatest debate or the greatest disaster in television history. Hillary Clinton arrived first to enthusiastic applause from her supporters and polite acknowledgement from others. Wearing a white pantsuit that symbolically echoed her choice on election night in 2016, looking confident and almost eager. She had been preparing for this moment since Trump's first indictment, ready to finally call him a criminal on national television, to tell America, "I told you so," and to get vindication for 2016, having absolutely no idea what was coming. Donald Trump walked out 3 minutes later to a deafening roar from his section of the audience, the applause and cheering lasting nearly 2 full minutes, so long that Brett Baier had to gesture repeatedly for quiet. Trump wore his signature dark suit and red tie, waved to the crowd with that familiar sweeping gesture, and walked to his podium carrying something Hillary immediately noticed: a thick, organized binder, multiple binders, actually stacked neatly by his staff at his podium. Her confident smile faltered slightly, as Trump arriving with prepared materials was never a good sign for his opponents. Brett Baier began his introduction, laying out the format of opening statements, moderated questions with rebuttals, direct exchanges, and closing statements, reminding both candidates and the audience that this was about issues facing America, not personal attacks, a reminder that would last approximately 90 seconds. "Secretary Clinton," Brett began, "your opening statement, please," and Hillary launched immediately into her prepared remarks, her voice strong and confident. "Thank you, Brett. The American people deserve to know the truth about the man standing across from me. Donald Trump is facing multiple criminal indictments. He is accused of mishandling classified documents, obstructing justice, and attempting to overturn a free and fair election," she declared, adding that he is, by any reasonable definition, a criminal who should be in prison, not running for president. Her supporters applauded enthusiastically as she turned to face Trump directly and said, "History will remember you as a criminal, Mr. Trump, a man who put himself above the law, above the Constitution, above everything this country stands for. You are a disgrace to the office you held, and a danger to American democracy." She smiled, confident she had landed a devastating opening blow, but Trump smiled back, not a friendly smile, but the smile of someone who had been waiting years for this exact moment. She had called him a criminal, and he had brought receipts. This was chess. "Well, Hillary," Trump said, his voice carrying that Queen's accent his supporters loved and critics mocked, Thank you for that. Very nice, very eloquent. You've always been good with words. Not so good with emails, but great with words. The audience laughed, and Hillary's smile tightened as Trump continued, reaching for his first binder. But since you want to talk about criminals, let's talk about criminals, because I brought some evidence tonight. Actual evidence. Not accusations, not opinions, evidence. He opened the binder and nodded to the production booth, causing images to appear on the massive screens behind both podiums. Hillary, in 2015, you had a private email server in the basement of your house. True or false? Hillary's expression changed, realizing this wasn't how this was supposed to go. She was supposed to be prosecuting him, not defending herself. She attempted to reply, "That matter was thoroughly investigated by the FBI." But Trump interrupted, "I didn't ask if it was investigated. I asked true or false. Did you have a private email server in your basement? Yes or no?" She paused, then answered carefully, "I used a private email system," to which Trump replied, "True, thank you," before pulling out more documents. "And on that private server, you conducted official State Department business, including classified information. Correct?" He pressed. When she tried to nuance the answer, saying classification issues were reviewed, he demanded a yes or no, eventually stating, "Hillary, classified information on your private server. Thousands of emails. Classified information on a server in your basement. Not a secure government facility. Your basement." He let that sit, then continued, "Now, in March 2015, you received a congressional subpoena for those emails. Correct?" And she admitted, "I complied with." Before he cut in, "Yes or no? You got a subpoena in March 2015? And she conceded, "Yes." "And after receiving that subpoena, what did you do with 33,000 of those emails?" he asked, and met with silence. Trump didn't wait for her answer, displaying the timeline on the screens. March 4th, 2015, congressional subpoena issued. March 25 to 31, 2015. 33,000 emails deleted. Computer technician uses BleachBit to prevent recovery. Multiple devices destroyed with hammers. You deleted 33,000 emails after getting a subpoena. That's called destroying evidence. That's called obstruction of justice, he declared, causing the Trump section of the audience to erupt in applause. Hillary tried to respond that those were personal emails, but Trump countered, "After a subpoena, Hillary, you decided which emails were personal after you were ordered to turn them all over. Then you used BleachBit, which I didn't even know was a thing until you taught me to make sure nobody could recover them, and you had people physically destroy devices with hammers." He turned to the audience and said, "Folks, if I had deleted 33,000 emails after getting a subpoena, I'd be in prison right now. I'd be in a cell. But somehow, Hillary did it, and nothing happened." He turned back to her, his voice rising. "You want to talk about mishandling classified documents? I kept documents in Mar-a-Lago. Secure location, Secret Service protection, locked room. You kept them on a private server in your basement." He was on a roll now, voice getting louder. "You want to talk about obstruction? I cooperated with the National Archives. You destroyed 33,000 emails with BleachBit." He pulled out printed testimony and showed it on the screens FBI Director James Comey's statement that Hillary was extremely careless with classified information, but recommending no prosecution, saying, Comey said, "You were extremely careless with some of the most sensitive information our country has, but no charges, nothing," explaining the double standard to America. His final line of the segment was delivered with perfect timing. "You called me a criminal, Hillary. You deleted 33,000 emails after a congressional subpoena. You destroyed evidence with hammers and BleachBit. But somehow I'm the criminal? Give me a break. The audience reaction was deafening, his supporters chanting, "Lock her up! Lock her up!" while her supporters tried to shout them down, leaving Bret Baier struggling to restore order. Hillary sat at her podium, visibly rattled. This was supposed to be her moment of vindication, and instead, she was defending her email scandal all over again. Bret Baier tried to move to his prepared questions, but Trump was already pulling out his next binder, saying, "Let's talk about your foundation, Hillary, the Clinton Foundation, because I think America deserves to know about the pay-to-play scheme you ran out of the State Department." Hillary's face went pale, which Trump noticed and grinned at, noting, "Nothing ruins a charity narrative faster than the donor list. Your foundation raised over $1 billion while you were Secretary of State and during your presidential campaign, correct?" he asked, forcing her to admit. "The Clinton Foundation is a charity that has helped millions of people around the world," to which he pressed, "Yes or no, Hillary? Over $1 billion? She couldn't deny public records and said yes, to which he replied, "Good. Now, how much of that $1 billion went to actual charitable programs? To actually helping people?" Hillary shifted uncomfortably, beginning to say, "The foundation's work includes," before Trump cut her off and displayed data on the screens from multiple charity watchdog organizations showing the Clinton Foundation spent only 5 to 15% of its revenue on direct charitable programs. 5 to 15%. That's the range. The rest? Salaries, travel expenses. Your daughter, Chelsea, made hundreds of thousands a year from the foundation. Your family traveled the world on foundation money, he stated, pulling out another document. And speaking of Chelsea, there are credible reports from WikiLeaks from investigative journalists that her $3 million wedding was partially paid for with foundation funds. Care to deny that under oath? Hillary's attorneys would have been screaming at this point, but this wasn't a legal proceeding, so she could only respond, "Those allegations are false." But Trump demanded, "Then, release the financial records. Let's see where every dollar went." "But you won't, will you?" Trump moved to his next point without waiting for an answer. "Now, let's talk about who donated to this charity while you were Secretary of State. The person in charge of American foreign policy, the person who could approve arms deals, international agreements, and access to the U.S. government." He displayed a list on the screens with donors and amounts clearly visible, showing foreign government donations during Hillary's tenure as Secretary of State. Saudi Arabia, $25 million. Qatar, $5 million. Algeria, $500,000. Kuwait, $5 million. Oman, $1 million. United Arab Emirates, $1 million. Trump read each one aloud, letting the numbers sink in, stating, "Foreign governments donated tens of millions to your foundation while you were Secretary of State." And what happened after they donated? He pulled out State Department cables and approval documents, noting, Saudi Arabia donated $25 million, then got a massive arms deal approved. Qatar donated $5 million, got meetings, access, favorable treatment. Every single government that donated major money got something from your State Department. He turned to the audience and declared, "Folks, this is textbook corruption. Foreign governments pay money to your foundation, then get favors from your government agency. That's not charity. That's bribery, with extra steps." Hillary tried to defend that donations went through proper channels, but Trump retorted, "Proper channels? Your foundation took money from governments that execute gay people, that oppress women, that funded terrorism, and you took their millions while you were America's chief diplomat." Trump then moved to his next prepared section, Haiti. Let's talk about Haiti. The earthquake in 2010, terrible tragedy. Billions in aid poured in. Much of it went through your State Department and your foundation. And what happened? He showed images of Haiti today, still devastated and poor, asking, "Where did the money go, Hillary?" Haitian protesters have been asking that question for years. He displayed photos of protests in Haiti with signs reading, "Clinton, where's the money?" and stated, "Your brother Tony Rodham got a gold mining contract in Haiti. Very lucrative, very convenient." But regular Haitians? They're still waiting for the hospital, schools, and housing they were promised. Trump's voice rose with indignation. You took money meant for earthquake victims, and it disappeared into a maze of contractors, consultants, and Clinton associates. That's not charity, Hillary. That's theft. His final summary on this topic was devastating. The Clinton Foundation raised $1 billion, gave 5 to 15% to actual charity, took tens of millions from foreign governments while you were Secretary of State. Those governments got favors. Haiti money disappeared. Your family got rich. He looked directly at her and said, "That's not a foundation, Hillary. That's a pay-to-play scheme. That's corruption. That's selling American foreign policy to the highest bidder. And you want to call me corrupt?" He noted that her foundation is under investigation and that donations dropped 90% after she lost the election, asking, why? Because people weren't donating to help charity. They were paying for access to you. The Trump section roared approval, while the Clinton section sat in uncomfortable silence. And Trump grabbed his third binder, marked uranium 1-inch large letters visible to the cameras. Now let's talk about Russia, Hillary. Real Russia collusion. Not the fake Russia hoax you spent 4 years pushing. Actual Russians paying you while you sold them American uranium. Hillary's face flushed as she retorted, "The Mueller investigation found nothing." But Trump interrupted, "We're not talking about me. We're talking about you and Uranium One. You spent 4 years screaming Russia. I brought actual Russian deals." Trump displayed a timeline on the screens. 2009 to 2013. Russian Atomic Energy Company seeks to buy Uranium One. 2010 to 2013. Uranium. One investors donate $145 million to Clinton Foundation. 2010. Hillary's State Department approves sale. 2013. Sale completed. Russia controls 20% of U.S. uranium production. 2010. Bill Clinton receives $500,000 for Moscow speech. You approved the sale of 20% of American uranium production capacity to Russia. True or false? He asked. And when Hillary tried to say the sale was reviewed by 9 agencies, he pressed, "I asked about you as Secretary of State. Did you approve this sale? Yes or no?" Forcing her to admit, "Yes, the sale was approved with State Department agreement." "Thank you," Trump said. Now, while this sale was being reviewed, Russians and Uranium One. Investors donated $145 million to your foundation. True or false? When she tried to distance herself from the foundation, he pounded the podium. $145 million from Russians and people who directly benefited from the sale, while you were deciding whether to approve it. He pulled out more documents, adding, "And your husband, Bill, got paid $500,000 for a speech in Moscow from a Russian bank while you were reviewing the Uranium One deal." Trump walked towards center stage, addressing the audience. "Folks, let me break this down so it's crystal clear. Russians and investors want to buy American uranium. They need Hillary's approval as Secretary of State. So, what happens? 1. They donate $145 million to her foundation. 2. They pay Bill $500,000 for a speech. 3. Hillary approves the sale. 4. Russia gets 20% of our uranium." He turned back to Hillary. "That's called a bribe, Hillary. That's actual collusion with Russia. That's selling out American national security for foundation donations. He pulled out one more document, stating, and the best part, the FBI was investigating this. They had evidence of Russian bribery and kickbacks, but that investigation was buried. Why? Because you were supposed to win. In 2016, his voice rose to its climax. But I won. And suddenly you spent 4 years screaming that I colluded with Russia. Mueller investigation, 2 impeachments, non-stop hysteria about Russia. That's called projection, Hillary. You sold uranium to Russia while they paid you $145 million? But somehow, I'm the Russian agent? Give me a break. He shook his head in exaggerated disbelief, noting that Mueller found nothing on him after 2 years. But, for you, we have the receipts. $145 million in donations, $500,000 speech, uranium sale approved, all documented, all proven. That's actual Russia collusion. His final line was delivered with perfect timing. Russians donate $145 million. You approve uranium sale. Bill gets $500K. But I have a phone call with Ukraine, and you try to impeach me? Hillary, you sold out America to Russia, not me. And you spent years projecting your crimes onto me so nobody would notice. The audience erupted in chants of, "Lock her up," and even some moderates looked convinced by the documentary evidence. Hillary sat frozen, unable to effectively counter the facts and financial records. Trump grabbed another binder, this one with photos attached to the front, and Hillary visibly tensed. Now, let's talk about the 4 Americans who died on your watch. Benghazi. Hillary tried to interrupt. That tragedy has been investigated by 8 different, but Trump cut in, yes, investigated. And you know what those investigations found? That you lied to everyone, to America, to the families of the dead Americans. You lied. Trump displayed photos on the screens of Ambassador Chris Stevens, Sean Smith, Tyrone Woods, and Glenn Doherty, stating, 4 Americans killed on September 11th, 2012 inches Benghazi, Libya, while you were Secretary of State. They worked for you. They died on your watch. He pulled out security request documents, noting, before the attack, these men and others sent multiple requests for increased security. They said they were vulnerable. They said they needed protection. And your State Department denied those requests. Yes or no? When Hillary tried to explain security complexities, Trump simplified it. They asked for help. You said no. They died. Is that accurate? Forcing her to admit. Security requests were evaluated. They were denied. And Americans died. Trump then pulled out the most damaging evidence. Hillary's own emails. The night of the attack at 11:12 p.m. You sent an email to your daughter, Chelsea. Let me read it. 2 of our officers were killed in Benghazi by an Al-Qaeda-like group. You told Chelsea the truth that night. You knew it was terrorism. You knew it was Al-Qaeda. He then pulled out public statements she made to the American people blaming a YouTube video and showed video of her at the casket ceremony telling grieving families the attack stemmed from an inflammatory video. You lied to their faces at their loved ones' funerals. You knew it was terrorism. You told Chelsea it was terrorism, but you told those families it was a video, Trump said harshly, asking, why? Because it was an election year, and admitting it was a terrorist attack would hurt Obama's Al-Qaeda is on the run narrative. So you lied. He then played the infamous video of Hillary angrily shouting, what difference at this point does it make? In Congress, letting it play twice, Trump pointed at the screen, showing the 4 men's photos. It made a difference to them. It made a difference to their families. It made a difference to Americans who deserve the truth. His voice rose. You denied security. You ignored warnings. You lied about the cause. You lied to their families. And when questioned, you said, "What difference does it make?" He walked toward her podium and said, "Those 4 Americans made a difference, Hillary. They served their country. They depended on you for protection, and you failed them. Then you lied about how they died. Then you acted like it didn't matter." His final line was quiet, but cutting. You asked what difference it makes. Ask their families. Ask the Gold Star families you lied to at those caskets. They'll tell you what difference it makes. The studio was completely silent except for some crying from the audience. Trump moved to his next attack. Let's talk about your Wall Street speeches. The ones you gave for hundreds of thousands of dollars. The ones you refused to release the transcripts for. What were you hiding, Hillary? Private speeches, public lies. He noted Goldman Sachs paid her $675,000 for 3 speeches, or $225,000 per hour, asking what she told them that was worth that much. When she deflected, WikiLeaks released some of it. Let me read your own words. You need both a public and a private position. You admitted you lie to the public. He walked the stage, building momentum. You attack Wall Street publicly, but privately, you take their millions. You tell them one thing, you tell voters another. He listed more fees. Deutsche Bank, $485,000. Morgan Stanley, $225,000. Bank of America, $675,000. UBS, $225, totaling over $21 million in speaking fees. What a fighter for the working class, taking $225,000 per hour from Goldman Sachs, he said with dripping sarcasm. He then transitioned to the basket of deplorables video, playing it in full to remind the audience she had called millions of Americans deplorable, irredeemable, racist, sexist, homophobic. Trump turned to the audience. She called you deplorable, American voters. You're deplorable because you didn't support her. You're deplorable if you wanted jobs back in America, if you wanted secure borders, if you believed in the Second Amendment. His voice rose with indignation. How dare you call American voters deplorable? These are patriots. These are people who work hard every day. He accused her of flying in private jets while lecturing on climate change and living in mansions while preaching inequality, noting she made $240 million after public service. You told Wall Street one thing privately. You told voters another publicly. You took $675,000 from Goldman Sachs. You called American voters deplorable and you wonder why you lost. He said, concluding, "You're not a champion of the working class, Hillary. You're an elitist who despises regular Americans, and they saw right through you. That's why you lost." Trump moved in for the final blow. You know what bothers me most, Hillary? It's been 8 years, and you still haven't accepted it. Have you? When she tried to blame Russia, he pulled out her book, What Happened, and theatrically flipped through it. Let's see who you blamed. Russia, Comey, Bernie Sanders, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, the media, sexism, the DNC, voters who stayed home. Everyone you blamed, except the person who ran a terrible campaign. He displayed polling data showing she lost because she ignored Wisconsin and called voters deplorable, and because 36% of Americans found her untrustworthy due to the email scandal, the foundation, and the speeches. But instead of accepting that, you spent 4 years saying the election was stolen. You undermined American democracy for 4 years because you couldn't accept that you lost, he said, pointing out the hypocrisy that when he questioned the 2020 election, he was called a threat to democracy. But when she claimed 2016 was stolen, it was acceptable. Rules for thee, but not for me. That's the Clinton way, he said, adding, you never graciously conceded. You blamed everyone but yourself. You spent years undermining the election you lost. He looked directly at her. The truth is simple. You lost because you were a terrible candidate with a corrupt record, and 8 years later, you still can't admit it. Bret Baier tried to move to closing statements, but Trump insisted on summarizing, walking to center stage to review the real criminal. He ticked off the points on his fingers, deleted 33,000 emails after subpoena. Fact. Destroyed devices with hammers. Fact. Kept classified info in basement. Fact. Foundation took $145 million from Russians. Fact. Foundation took money from foreign governments. Fact. Gave only 15% to charity. Fact. Denied Benghazi security. Fact. Lied about the video. Fact. Took Wall Street millions. Fact. Called voters deplorable. Fact. Every single thing I've said tonight is documented, he declared, spreading his arms wide. All facts, all on record, all undeniable. He turned to Hillary. You called me a criminal, but you're the one who destroyed evidence. You called me corrupt, but you're the one who ran a pay-to-play foundation. You screamed about Russia, but you're the one who sold uranium to Russia. You claimed moral authority, but you lied about Benghazi. You pretended to fight for workers, but you called them deplorable. His voice reached a crescendo. I beat you in 2016 because American voters saw through you. They saw someone who put personal enrichment above public service. And tonight, in front of 50 million people, I've just proven it all over again, with evidence, with facts, with receipts you can't deny. He walked back to his podium and turned for his final line. I beat you once because you were corrupt. I'm beating you again tonight because you're still corrupt. And America is watching with the receipts. The audience erupted into a standing ovation. Chants of "Lock her up" filling the studio, while Hillary sat visibly shaken, unable to deny the documented facts presented in one devastating 2-hour presentation. The video exploded across every platform, garnering 267 million views within a week. Deleted 33,000 emails became the #1 trending topic, and "Lock her up" roared back into the cultural lexicon. Even mainstream media like CNN and MSNBC were forced to cover it extensively, and fact-checkers had to admit Trump's core facts were accurate, leading to a dramatic shift in polling, where 71% believed Hillary committed crimes that should have been prosecuted. The Clinton Foundation's donations virtually ceased, leading to layoffs, and legal experts like Alan Dershowitz noted that Trump presented documented evidence, raising serious legal questions. The debate became known as the Clinton debate in academic circles, a case study in how documentary evidence can overcome political deflection. Hillary Clinton disappeared from public view, reportedly devastated and humiliated, and 3 weeks later announced she was stepping away from public life, a move widely seen as a surrender, forced by Trump's dismantling of her legacy. The 2016 election was reframed in public consciousness, with Trump seen as having been right about Clinton corruption all along, and a congressional select committee was formed to investigate the foundation with 64% public support. Trump had achieved his ultimate vindication not in a courtroom, but on live television, proving to 267 million people, with receipts that he had been right about Hillary Clinton all along.